All right, guys, so just to get you used to actually keying your character, let's do a little exercise. So I opened up Andy and I just saved it as another file because you never want to write the original one. Overwrite it. And we're going to use a jump. So instead of me setting a key for every single frame, we're going to go through these poses, and this is why your reference information is so important. This is also showing some of the basically your rules of animation or your guidelines for animation, the principles that basically I showed you, where we're showing anticipation before the action, weight, speed, and then your follow through and recovery, and then going back to a neutral pose. For this, I just created a cube. I flattened it out, and if we go to spacebar, click on my left view, we can see I lined it up. And just so I don't keep on accidentally grabbing this, because I want her to be consistent on the ground plane, I'm just going to go in, create a new layer, double click, call it floor. And then I'm going to, with it selected, right click and add selected object. And now when I click on this to R, we see now I can't accidentally grab that, but I can grab the circle that's around her feet. So I want to kind of go through these poses using the character set. So now I'm going to go turn on her body character set. And so the first thing, I'll go to frame 0. Let's tighten this up. Let's do a little test here. And I'll make it a little bit longer, and then I'll shorten it afterwards. So let's say about 60 frames. Actually, that's pretty long. Yeah, we're doing 30 frames a second, so that's well, that's like 2 seconds. That's not too bad. So I'm gonna go to frame 0 with the this guy turned on. I'll just highlight that, and I'm gonna give her her neutral pose. Let's say her neutral pose is right here. So on frame 0, I just press S, and now her key is set. Then let's say uh, within 10 seconds, and I'll move these around once I have them. I want to get her into her anticipation pose. So that's where we're going to go. Going to pull her down. We're going to grab the spine, kind of rotate that forward so it has a nice little curve to it. And I might even go back in and take this guy and pull that kind of like this. And how much you do it can really depend. It's like I don't have to go, it's like a 90-degree here. It just depends on how much. So say something like this. And now I want to get her head. I could select one at a time, but I'm just going to rotate these. So you see, I'm matching it to that pose. And now I want to take, let's grab, I'm going to go back to a perspective view. And I might actually also do a few things like typically when you squat or you bend your knees kind of go outward like so. I'll worry about the foot position and going on your toes and stuff later. And I can move these one by one, or I could take both and try to move them up. I'll do the fist and everything afterwards. I just want to get this pose. So let's see what that looks like. I may rotate these just a little bit so it's like this. And I might even decide that I want to take kind of huncher it back even a little bit more right there. There, that's a good. And you see I'm matching the pose of my reference. Okay. And since I tilted her that forward more, I also need to rotate so her head is actually going up more. Something like that. So frame 10, got her in her anticipation pose. Set. So now she goes into anticipation. And then she's going to go into the jumping pose where she's going off of the floor. Now, sometimes it's good to actually have markers of where you want certain things to happen. So like, oh, she's going to land here, start here. This is the apex and then land here. And when I do, I don't always do that, but if I do that, I do something like just create something like a cube or a cone as my little bit of a guide. If I said that's where her front toes are going to be, and I don't always do this, but it helps me to visualize so that duplicate that. And let's say this is going to be where she's in midair. And this is going to be where she makes contact. So she's going to jump all the way over there. Okay. And I could grab these and add selected. So now I can't accidentally grab them. So we've got that jump. So let's say right about here, we're going to have the takeoff. Okay. So now I have to get her into that position. So that means I've got to straighten her body out. So we can go in here, start grabbing her spine. And if I'm having a problem with like the rotation, I could just zero these out to straighten her out. Take these guys, zero them out for now. And if I want to now, I could go, let's go back and grab the little circles of the feet. And if I want to do a little bit of foot motion, you notice they have like a foot roll. I select the name and then I can middle mouse drag like so. I can do a ball roll. I can do a toe roll. So it really just depends on what I want to do. And I get her into a position. I don't want to hyperextend. I mean, even though it's here, I mean, I suppose if you really want to go for the cartoon style, you can. And it will give you that little bit of that squash and stretch that you can have. And now let's go in. I'm going to take the hands. Go back. Bring them. Let's rotate them. I have to bring the elbows and move them down because otherwise they're going to be really weird. Let's grab these guys again and lift them up. And you can decide how exaggerated it's going to be. Like I said, you can pull it if you want it to be more cartoony. And I could even kind of rotate her head down a little bit. Pull both these hands, lift them up a little, grab the shoulders, move them down. And I also want to make sure they're kind of not in here. In other words, I want to pull them out a little bit. Otherwise, I might have some weirdness. So you always go to the frame, pose, set a key. To the frame, pose, set a key. To the frame, pose, set a key. So I'm just gonna we can always go back and tweak it. This is the block. So now I'm gonna go in, say, all right, maybe something like this. Press S. And we have this. Just like that. Now at frame 30, I need my midair. And that's where we go in. We select these 2 feet. I'm going to zero these out. Go. Now I'm going to move those feet. And the cube, this is important, not the circle, the square around her body. So I have both feet and the square. And I'm going to bring it so it's over that midpoint. Like she just shot up there, man. Right up there. And now I got to get her into that pose. So we're going to take the hands, move them down, and I might actually start to get a little bit, try and get a little more rotation here. Pick one foot. Maybe it's a little like this. Pick the other foot. Or actually, let's take this one. Move it back a little. Take the other foot. So that might be the predominant. And we just get her into a position. And because it's animation and 3D, remember you have to keep on looking at where everything is. I have to look at it from different sides and see if that is giving me the effect that I want. Okay. So I'm just going in. Maybe this is down. Maybe this is up. Might even twist the foot just a little. So we have a frozen moment in time. Okay. And if I say, man, maybe that's a little bit off, then I could just grab both the feet and this cube and just move them back just a little bit, right about there. And now press S and it keys the whole body. Now, if I right click and go to stepped mode, we go back here. Stepped is just pose to pose. So we hit play. And there we go. If I spline mode, the curves, I turn that off. Now I'm going to have to add more stuff later, but this is just the first pass. So now that I've got that, now I go to my next pose. And now you're hopefully seeing why it's so important to have that reference material so that you can actually animate. Now I have to get her back into this pose. Now trying to get her lined up here might be a little bit of a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to frame 20. Middle mouse drag to 40. And you notice, unlike when I go here, what's happening is I'm actually just scrubbing without changing her pose. And the benefit of that is now I can take, let's take her, right now I actually could move the circle. It depends on how much you want, because right now, if I had actually keyed that forward like she's just doing it in place, so I would just move this to animate. We'll go over that later. But since I know she's just doing one jump and it's going forward, I'm not going to have her jump in place and then move the circle. I'm just going to show you jumping forward. Okay. So what we'll do is I'm going to go to here, middle mouse drag to 40. And what I want to do is grab the feet. And this guy. And I'm going to, oops, middle mouse drag it. Boom. To here. If I use the arrow, it's going to pull them in different directions. I'm middle mouse dragging from the center, from this angle. So now I'm going to give her more of a proper landing. Oops. Rotate her back. And with her feet selected, you land on your heels. So now, zero that out. And actually, I'll just pull it back. And let's move that forward a little, push it down. Take her hands, move those like this. Maybe give her a little bit more of a cartoony sort of extension here. And all that speed and that drop is making her kind of like go way back. And I might even arch the back just a little bit. And maybe move the pelvis forward just a little bit. Bam, just like that. And once again, I can definitely kind of just tweak some things out. I can make sure maybe this is over here and this is over here. And what do those, even though she's hyperextended a little bit, let's pull these just a little bit down. Oops, go to the right view. There we go. So I can have her elbows a little bit more like that. And now I'll press S. And on frame 50, we have the recovery. Now, I can use a similar frame, or I could just pose her. So I could either go over to 50 and then put her into this position. If I have a pose that she's already made somewhere, I can actually grab a pose or something close to it. Like, let's say this one right here, if I wanted to use part of this and then modify it, or this one or the other. You can use, maybe it's this one. So I'd grab her feet and that cube around her waist. Let's move her over here. And then we reposition her to fit this pose. Grab those feet. Zero that out. Let her catch this. Really absorb that landing. And then take these guys, move them down. Take the hands. Up. Those elbows are just not working, so we need to, even though it's there, it's just a little weird. So we're going to pull these guys down. Middle mouse drag to 50 and set a key there. And then I want her to go back to a resting position, which is like this. So I'll just go to that one, middle mouse drag all the way to 60, and then just grab, I'm using Q to select, W for the move tool. So I have the box and her feet. I'm just going to move that over. Now I may have to, I didn't line up where her foot was, and that's my own fault. So I have to see where, actually, let's do that again. So yeah, her foot's right there. Now if I want, what I can do is I can temporarily switch this over and use this as my guide. Where is her foot? Like this lines up right with, you see, where the back of her foot is. So I know when I move her forward, let's lock that down again, that I know I've got to get her into that position. So we're going to go here, middle mouse drag to 60, grab, in this case, her feet and the green box. And I'm just going to move them over so that the back of her foot is lined up with the top of that cone. Let's leave it there. And press S. So let's see what we got. There's our jump. Now, after that's done, we could start to get the timing, like she jumps to this, goes to this faster. So maybe we would take both of these and we'd scale those down and move them in closer. Oh, that's much better. And maybe here, we'll take these, move them in a little bit. Now, let's see. So After I do my pass, then I go in, and then I'd go afterwards and start adding extras. Her fingers closing, offsetting the legs. So like maybe right here, I'd add a frame where this foot goes up so that you see this. Maybe this one is like this. And now you can see I'm adding an offset. And to be safe, I shift select all of these when I start moving keys. Right click, hold, and say snap. And that makes sure that these are on full keyframes. And then I'd start to do the same with the arms so that they're offset. And I might have her now move a little bit forward so that now when she lands, there's a little bit more of a roll in it. Maybe I move it back a little bit. Now you can see I'm adding to the keys to smooth it out. And maybe right here, I would take one of the feet and offset this one a little. But that's how we basically do it. First pass, second pass, start adding and tweaking out keys, moving them to get your timing right, and then you can get some nice motions. And the stepping is basically right-clicking, going to enable stepped preview, rewind, play. And all that came from was my references. So try this out as a separate file, and you can turn this in and for extra credit. And I think this will help you with setting your keys and starting to think of why you're doing your references and your poses. Let's see what you can do.